Hello and welcome to Zelda Speedruns. I hope you're having a lovely day, afternoon, evening, morning, whatever time zone it is for you. And you are ready for some Minish Cap. Welcome to a restream of the Minish Cap Any Percent Tournament 2024. It's the upper semifinals. It's Semirare versus Darkysquid. And your commentator today is Darkysquid. Hope you're doing well, Darkysquid. How are ya?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm really excited for this match. We're getting pretty far in the tournament, so it's awesome to be a part of these restreams and seeing it. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for having me. How are you today?
Oh, I can't complain. Looking forward to, I think, one of the most charming Zelda games ever created. So let's get this race underway. I've just clicked the start button in race time, so on stream you'll see them set off in about 50 seconds. Thanks to a little bit of technical delay here, but that's okay. They should be on their way very soon.
This could be a really exciting match as well. Both Semi and Darky are really high up on the ladder. They're actually right next to each other, about 30 seconds difference between their PBs. So no matter what happens today, it's going to be an amazing race.
This is true. And for whatever reason, the timer is slightly ahead. Apologies. But yeah, you should see them get started in a few seconds here. And I'll try to fix the timer. There they go, mashing through to the start menu, and off they go. All right, so I don't know a thing about Minish Cap. I'm mostly here to help with the technology and to make sure this restream is happening. So let's talk about what is the goal of this game, and what can we expect in this category specifically? What kind of tricks can we look forward to?
Excellent question. So the goal of this game is you need to fix the sword that you see in the pretty pictures up on the board. That is the Force Sword that seals away a lot of evil demons, and so you got to fix it. It's kind of like the precursor to the Master Sword. So that involves going all over the world, even into cemeteries and up in the clouds, to find the element pieces that can be fused together into the sword. In the Any Percent run, however, we only care about a little bit of that. You're going to see a lot of the map that we're never going to go to. People are going to tell us, oh, you need to go here, and we don't care. So right off the bat, actually, is the very first glitch, is going to be an RNG manip. And for those who aren't familiar with speedrunning and aren't familiar with RNG manips, essentially we are going to be telling the game what to quote-unquote randomly provide us. So in the beginning here, we're looking to get a blue rupee out of the first pot that we throw. So all of the mashing through the start menus and the movement that we have in this first room is specific and exact to ensure that after we open that chest for the 20 rupees, we can then open the throw the pot to the left for another 5. There are a few things we got to purchase in the run, and it's just a lot easier to guarantee that early cash as opposed to having to get it randomly from enemy drops. So it's pretty exciting to have a glitch right off the bat. Beyond that, it's going to be a lot of rolling and a lot of very precise and calculated gameplay. The game's going to look relatively vanilla for the first couple of dungeons, so we'll see the technical skill and the experience that these players have just with the base game mechanics. And then after that second dungeon, honestly, everything's going to fall apart. The world will shatter and reality will bend, and we'll never know which way is up. And I, for one, can't wait.
That is indeed pretty exciting. I also love that, as you said, we start off right with a glitch. We start off with a RNG manipulation. So they needed to basically use that to initialize the random number generator with a specific seed number. So to force specific random events later in the game.
Exactly. So a cool thing about Minish Cap, and if I'm not mistaken, it's this way with a lot of Game Boy Advance titles. But when you turn on the game from like a soft reset or even a full reset, there's a specific seed that is always generated. It's always the exact same. So from a save and quit and a restart, you will have the exact same randomness. So the enemies move the same, the items dropping from grasses, enemy drops and pots will always be the same as long as you have the exact same movement each time. So we use and abuse that many times throughout the run to get exactly what we want when we want it. So whenever you see one of these runners enter an area, quickly save and quit and go back to the title screen, just know that that's because we're about to get something that we don't want to have to randomly wait for later. We'll also see that with a couple of bosses later in this run, where we don't want to deal with the randomness. We want to have something consistent and fast.
All right, so basically, maybe even trading off specific boss setups that might be possible with other random seeds for just an overall very consistent way to beat them.
Exactly. And you'll even see some kind of a weird movement that might not seem optimal. It's like, well, why didn't they roll there? It's because even though that specific movement might be slower, the benefit you get from forcing the game to do what you want it to do greatly outweighs like the frames of time save you could have had.
Love it. All right. So a very technical category is what I'm hearing. Any percent is always going to be glitch heavy in any game, but this seems like there's some advanced shenanigans going on here.
And Minish Cap in particular, there's a lot of non-RNG based glitches, and we'll see them and I'll explain them as they happen. But any percent really is a lot of RNG manips.
All right, love it. So it seems like our runners have just basically completed the intro sequence of this game. Or
that's exactly
more
right.
or less completed.
Yeah, so our resident bad guy, Vadi, has shown up after winning a sword fighting tournament in an attempt to get this mystical treasure he wanted from that chest. He was pretty disappointed to find out it was just a bunch of bad guys, and so in retaliation, turned the princess into a statue, which,
that's
as
I've
heard, it's not the greatest thing in terms of the monarchy. So they're sending a child out because only a child can see the mythical Picori, or the Minish, a forest-dwelling race of tiny people. They will be able to repair the sword that Vadi broke, that you will then be able to use to defeat Vadi and save the princess and the world as a whole. So that's where we're on the quest to now, is to Minish Woods.
All right. So I'm seeing basically they're almost exactly on the same frame here. Yeah. On Restream they're just a little further apart, but it is less than a second of difference in this intro sequence. I mean, this is also the sequence that you would grind the most in any speedrun, basically, by virtue of it being the start. But it's still impressive to see how optimized both of these runners are going at this.
Absolutely, and there's been a lot of practice and study into what is the most optimal movement. So you're going to see a lot of these rolls be almost the same, and right now they're basically synced up. The only thing to really pay attention to at this phase of the game is just watching all the different enemies, the little Octoroks, the shoes that show up. Make sure you're not rolling into them. Sometimes they can go into positions that are really unfortunate, and you have to be kind of awkwardly shuffling around them.
So
both runners got pretty good luck.
I mean, that did happen to Semirare on the way here, right? Did run into one Octorok.
Yeah, a little bit. The one that's at the bottom of the stairs, leaving the farm, has a pretty good chance of being in that awkward distance from a roll. So it can happen, but you can see that kind of a change really doesn't have much of an impact.
And it turns out we now have a hat.
We now have a hat, which is really important for keeping your head cool. As my mom always said, it makes sure I don't get a cold when I go outside, and in this case, it talks to you. So this is Eslo, the mysterious hat friend, who is going to guide us on our way, and they have this super fun, quirky ability of making you teeny tiny. So that's going to allow you to get into the Minish village, to meet them and speak to them, and hopefully get some help.
Well, let's see if they can help us, but looks good so far.
And you might have saw Semi fell into the water there, and that was calculated. So if you have precise movement, and we're talking like nearly frame perfect, you can actually catch that very first lily pad going around. And both runners were very close to it. Most times you're going to miss that very first one, because we've only had like a handful of people be able to get that in a run because of how tight it is. So getting that.
You basically risk a few seconds of having to climb out of the water over for being potentially able to save a few seconds of catching that first lily pad.
Exactly. So now we're going to talk to this guy, and he's going to tell you that you don't understand anything most of these people are saying, but it's okay, because just like in the real world, if you eat a nut, you'll be able to understand languages.
Makes sense.
That's exactly how it works. I understand 6 different languages because I just keep finding these seeds in the ground and I eat them indiscriminately. But now that we've eaten the jabber nut, Link is now able to understand the language of the Minish, and they'll actually be able to help them. With that nut, we're going to go over to this elder who knows a lot of important stuff, and he'll teach us about the elements that I mentioned earlier that we'll need to fix the sword. And he'll show us the map, and that's going to have the locations of the primary dungeons, essentially.
Perfect. All right. Also, for legal reasons, I do need to mention that Zelda Speedruns does not condone you eating random seeds and or nuts that you find on the ground if you are not sure what they are.
Yeah, definitely consult an expert.
Exactly. Foraging is fun if you know what you're doing.
Correct. Yeah, you could make a lot of bad mistakes with that, but thankfully, in a Legend of Zelda game, there's not really that much risk involved. But now, welcome to Deepwood Shrine. This is the first dungeon of the game. You can kind of consider this your tutorial dungeon. Deepwood Shrine is a very satisfying dungeon in terms of movement. There's not really any glitches to speak of, so it is just about being precise and being consistent. Knowing
That's
where
just
to roll,
optimized
spacing,
movement.
everything. Yeah, optimized movement was the word I was looking for. Another little miniature time save you're looking to pick up this game. Every once in a while, Aslo the Hat will stop you to tell you important things, like, look, there's a thing you can see. And when he does stop you to talk about that, if you roll onto that little trigger, you're going to get kind of stuck there for a few frames. So you'll see sometimes the runners will stop rolling and just walk, and that actually saves a little bit of time so you're not being held there. But now that they've lit both of those torches, the barrel is able to freely move to navigate through the rest of the dungeon.
Perfect. So it does look like Darkysquid has, I don't know, is now a few seconds ahead of Semirare.
Yeah, about half a second maybe. And that can happen in the early parts of the run here. There's way too much that's going to happen later for this slight difference to really make much of an impact.
Gotcha. So it's optimized, but it's not down to the frame optimized, like, I don't know, Super Mario Brothers.
Right. Now that's a crazy run. You can watch 5 runners and see the exact same thing 5 times.
And somehow one of them wins.
Right. With Minish Cap, one of the big things is just enemy RNG. There's a lot of enemies packed into smaller spaces in some of these rooms, and knowing how to navigate around them and roll through them with a little bit of roll invincibility you have can really make or break your pace in a dungeon as well as navigating the overworld. This is one of the infamous ones. This is Slug Room. Where the slugs fall on the ground is random, so you'll see that we've got 2 different patterns. And if you're lucky, you can just kind of roll through these slugs. It looks like both the runners got kind of rough patterns and had to fight their way through it. And then we get to these ladybugs, which kind of Tokyo drift around you, so they can be a little tricky to keep hold of. But it looks like both the runners got pretty lucky being able to smack them against a wall and hold them down until they died. So keeping up some pretty solid paces on both sides. And now we're going to be moving into the first mini-boss of the game. This is Matterpillar. Matterpillar can be really fast or really slow. It just depends on where he moves. So you slap his nose, wait for the heart to pop out on his tail, and then keep hitting the heart. As long as you are like relatively decent in your pacing and your distances, you can take down Matterpillar in 2 cycles. We just saw Darky do that. Semi just finished his first cycle.
Ooh, that is unfortunate
no.
location there.
Yeah, that was a really nasty spawn. He got stuck on or he bounced off the cobweb. So Semi's going to have a 3 cycle here, and you can see he was only 1 hit away from getting that 2 cycle fight.
And there's the first major item.
Yep, this is the Gust Jar. It is a bucket of infinite air. And we can see Darky right now using it to navigate the lily pad, which is my personal least favorite mechanic in the game. Just pushing it around and trying to avoid the flies, because they can knock you off and just make it really annoying to get through here.
Oh no.
But so far, Darky's doing a pretty good job. Sammy's running into this as well. We'll see how the RNG chooses to treat him.
Oh, and he gets stuck on that pillar just slightly.
Just a little bit. And with these lily pads, moving them around is so awkward that even like a slight change in your movement can cost, a few seconds. Just because then you have to move it around and reline yourself up.
Yeah, so I noticed that this lily pad is not just moving in a straight line from when you're from where you're pointing the Gust Jar. It basically does have inertia, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's got inertia, it's got momentum, so it's going to kind of carry whatever direction you're pushing it in with those gusts of air. And going diagonally is always a little bit faster than going in a straight line. Like if you do 2 gusts in one direction and then turn 90 degrees and do another gust, sometimes you see a little speed boost. Like you saw it on Semirare's stream just now. It just kind of gives a little bit of an extra push on that diagonal.
And apparently the Gust Jar also doubles as a vacuum.
It does. It sucks in air, it shoves out air. The Gust Jar is going to be really critical for a major glitch that we're going to see later in this run as well, so look forward to that. Darky now starting the first dungeon boss fight. Semirare well on his way to get there as well. So this is, like, thematically speaking, one of my favorite things of Minish Cap. So this green shoe, as you saw, was just a regular enemy. But when he's sunk down through the ceiling, you can see the difference in size and where this regular enemy now turns into a full-scale dungeon boss.
I see.
So now we're going to be using the Gust Jar to suck away the slime on the bottom to make him overly top-heavy and fall over. And this fight, when you really look into it, is super interesting from an RNG perspective. So there's a lot of different factors that you're going to be seeing at play. So the amount of times you have to hit him is based on RNG. And there's only a few times you have to hit him for the cycle to change, to my understanding. But how many hits it takes for him to start actually getting back up is random. So it ranges between 4 and 9. And it looks like Semi got a little unlucky having to hit him so many times before he got back up. Darky finishing out the first dungeon. And then getting into the third cycle here on Semirare, we're going to see if he starts jumping at him or if he's just going to chase him. So he's chasing, so this is the faster third cycle. If he starts jumping, you kind of have to wait for him to jump and just try to get a couple quick swipes in whenever sucks in with the Gust Jar whenever you can. But a little bit of good luck has that shoe chasing him down on that third cycle for the quicker fight.
I see.
So now we have our first element, the Earth element. With that in mind, it is heading off to the mountain, Mount Krenel. So you'll also notice that both runners picked up the heart containers with all of the enemies.
I'll to comment on that, yeah.
Yeah, so in a lot of other games, you tend to skip a lot of the health pickups. They're seen as kind of time wasters. And this isn't just like marathon safety. Picking up these hearts, there's a lot of damage boosting in this run, which is essentially getting hit by something to shove you quicker in a direction, as well as just so many enemies to have to dodge that having a buffer for your health is almost necessary. So you'll even see the world record runners picking up most of, not all of, but most of the heart containers. Getting the bombs as well as our next major item. The bombs have a lot of cool properties. For example, blowing things up. For legal reasons, we can't recommend using these in everyday life like Link does, but he's a trained professional, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just gonna say, yeah, for legal reasons, do not use bombs to solve problems, though they are excellent at doing so.
Yeah, and they can be excellent tools in the hands of professionals, which would not be the greater Twitch audience. On Semi's screen right now, he is going to be opening up this wind crest. It's not going to mean anything right now, but it's going to be really important later. So I'll be able
and our
to call
fast,
that out.
our warp option in this game.
Yeah, that is our fast travel system, and we're going to be using and abusing that a lot as soon as we get the Wind Ocarina that'll allow us to use it. Also on Semi's screen now, we see he just got the Kinstone bag. So Kinstones are one of the major mechanics, like side mechanics of this game, where you collect these different colored stones, and then you find people with the other halves of those stones to fuse them together and make cool things happen in the world. So that's going to give beanstalks the ability to grow suddenly, and then you can climb up to get items, chests to appear, special monsters to appear. There are a few points in a casual playthrough where it's required to do those Kinstone fusions. There are some Kinstone fusions we will need to do in this run, and I'll be sure to point those out as we get a little bit closer. So some of you may have seen it on Darky's screen. Semi's coming up to it right now. This is one of, if not the first glitch of this run. Basically, when it comes to falling into water and finding a safe place to respawn, the game looks at a certain set of safe tiles. So one of the such safe tiles is the grass patch right below the sign next to that guard. So you're gonna line up under the sign, go back on the path, which are considered quote-unquote unsafe tiles, and then with specific movement sliding into the water, it'll respawn you not right next to where you fell off, which is the normal behavior, but all the way next to the sign. With that, you're able to roll past the guard without having to prove that you can do the spin attack. Saves a little bit of time. It's an incredibly easy trick. Anyone can do it. But now on Mount Krenel, it's going to be a lot of using water, or that green mineral water you see in the top right of Darky's screen, to grow these plants.
Does that mean you don't need the spin attack at all in this game, or is it just you can still do it, but you don't need to prove it to the guard?
That's a great question. The spin attack is required at many points throughout the run. It's just slow to do it to the guard, so we skip that.
Okay.
But yeah, the spin attack is going to be hard required, not just for doing some cool glitches, but just to play the game at all. You are going to need that spin attack.
Yeah, not just speaking of cool glitches, speaking of cool game mechanics as well. We've also already seen the first instance of the tiles where Link can basically multiply himself. We've not seen it used yet, but I've seen them when they picked up. Sorry, when they right after they got past the guard is, as far as I saw, a mechanic we know from Four Swords. All right, correct?
Yes. So those are the little copy panels. You won't see them used so heavily until much later, because we actually skip doing the first couple of element fusions that would give you that copy ability, because we have glitches to go around that and skip that need until the second to last dungeon of the game. So to get the fourth element before going to the final dungeon, that's when we'll actually fuse our sword. So we wait on that mechanic until the last possible moment, essentially. Now, Mount Krenel is honestly a very unforgiving part of the run. There's a lot of these enemies to dodge, Tektites are really awkward, hitboxes are weird, and if you die during the ascent of Mount Krenel, it puts you all the way back down to the very bottom. It saves you progress of what, puzzles you opened or, beanstalks you grew, but it's still...
but that's still a heck of a climb.
Exactly. So you want to be a little careful. Darky just now, you may have seen, he used the Gust Jar to grab a mushroom up on a cliff. And that was actually, if I'm not mistaken, the very first glitch discovered and documented. With a lot of these 2D games, they still have a sense of 3D to them, where if you climb up a ladder, you're going higher. And the game tracks the height of the player using layers. Now, with many parts of Mount Krenel, even though it looks like you're climbing up, a lot of these places of ground are actually on the same layer. They're just separated by walls you can't walk through. So that mushroom is on the same layer as the lower, quote-unquote, ground you're standing on, and you can use the Gust Jar to grab it through the wall and just pull yourself up. So both players right now very high on health, which is awesome to see. Things get pretty risky if you don't have it. So these boulders that are falling down this wall deal half a heart of health. And sometimes they can hit you and push you down a little bit and then hit you again for a full heart of damage. And with the speed at which you move, if a boulder's coming towards you, there's not always a lot you can do about it. So you want to try to have a nice amount of health in order to have that safety when climbing. Darky was very close to getting caught by that pea-hat and being unable to pull the mushroom. If you get hit, you let go of the mushroom, and you have to go and grab it again. And the longer you spend at the top of the mountain, the more in the way those enemies are going to get. And it's just going to be costing a ton of time. So we'll see if Semi gets the good movement so that he's able to avoid having to deal with these enemies. It's looking pretty solid. Fantastic. All right, so both players are through the crevice and are now able to finish their ascent. So we're getting pretty close to the end of Mount Krenel. It's doing the most exciting puzzle, block pushing, except for now they're like round rocks, I suppose. They kind of have an interesting texture, but they're boulders. And this part of the run with the pushing of the boulders is always a little nerve-wracking for me personally, just because if you mess it up and you can't get the rock where you need it to be, you have to go back to the little rock pedestal to shrink down and regrow to kind of quote-unquote reset the area. But with enough practice, you can take care of it and not have it be a big deal. It's just something that always sits in the back of my mind. Another cool thing right now, Darky was able to do the cool thing. Okay, so there is, at the top of the screen where Darky was using the Gust Jar to grab the mushroom, there's also one of those little Helmaroks, the little helmet-wearing guys, and he kind of positioned himself to suck in the enemy at the same time as grabbing the mushroom. So he was able to kind of kill him mid-air, which is kind of a swag move. Usually we just kind of wiggle back and forth just to keep him standing still, like you see Semi doing right now. It holds him still so he doesn't get in your way. But you can also do the cool swag move of killing him midair. Also, for another quick rupee pickup, guaranteed 20 rupees from that pot. Because there are a couple more things that we need to buy throughout the course of this run. So having that little bit of money is going to be necessary. Darky right now has reached the end of Krenel. He's now in another little Minish village. In here is going to be a smithy he needs to talk to who has the skills to repair the sword. But he's going to explain that while he can fix the sword, he cannot fuse the elements into the blade. that must be done at a certain shrine located in Hyrule Castle. And normally we would then complete the dungeon that we're about to go into right now, and then go and fuse those elements into the sword. But because we're cool and do cool guy things, we don't actually go to that shrine until close to the end of the game. But welcome to Cave of Flames. Cave of Flames is going to be
number
the
2?
introduction. Yeah. Cave of Flames is going to be the introduction of the first, I would say, first major glitch. And it's going to be really exciting when it happens. This one was discovered a few years ago. A little more than that. It's actually quite a while ago now. Time has flown by. But once we find, like, you may have seen them, little holes in the ground that Link can pop into and then pop out of, similar to the holes that we were pushing those boulders into earlier. So they have a really interesting property where, as you can see, Link is able to face the 4 cardinal directions, right? Up, down, left, and right. But he's still able to move diagonally. And when you pop out of one of those holes with a diagonal input, it looks like Link is facing one way, but he's actually kind of facing both, because there isn't a true diagonal facing way. And that's going to have a lot of interesting properties when it comes to jumping, using those holes for big jumps, grabbing and pulling or pushing objects, and everything's going to look a little weird, and it's great. It's one of my favorite tricks of all time. I like to call it angle retention, but different people have different names.
Cool. So basically, Link is facing 2 ways at the same time, depending on whichever, but not really. I'm sure that can be used for all kinds of shenanigans, can it?
Yes. When it was first discovered, it was seen as kind of this is kind of quirky and fun, and I don't know if we'll ever use it, but here it is. And then the idea was kind of posted around, like, what if we were to use that next to Legends and see what would happen? And that really tore apart the game, and it started, in my mind, kind of the golden age or the gold rush of Minish Cap speedrunning was going around finding every single one of those holes and seeing how could we exploit that to skip stuff. And we'll see it in a few different dungeons in this game, and we'll kind of use it all over to be able to skip things. And Darky right now is in the first room where we're going to use it. So we'll see him kind of float around, and we'll see the magic, as it were. He's going to open up that door, push the pillar just once, and he's going to go out diagonally, using the sword to hold his angle. And this is what I'm talking about. This is this weird diagonal pull. And he's going to then push it through the door, so that disables the loading zone on the door. So that is now a doorway that doesn't actually function. He'll get the small key, and by holding diagonal and doing rolls at the right time, he can actually walk through the other rooms and end up on this little bridge, which skips the need for using the key we picked up from that chest, which then allows us to use it later.
Ooh, neat.
That's out some nice backtracking that would normally happen in the dungeon. If you missed it on Darkysquid, it's happening again right now. Just totally normal pulling. I don't know about you.
Yeah, makes total sense. Yeah, like that seems reasonable. That seems a reasonable way to push a chest or pull a chest.
I mean, it's really comes in handy unless you're trying to help a friend move. And then all of a sudden, all their stuff is just shifting out of reality, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. So that's just something to be careful about in the real world.
That makes total sense. I mean, it's probably not very helpful to have like if your friend's chest of drawers just phasing through the wall when you help them move. So I see how that might be a problem.
Space efficient. I mean, if you can line it up to like the wall of their bedroom, but they can still access the drawers, it can be helpful. But you've got to be really careful, because if it goes all the way through the wall, that's just your neighbor's chest of drawers now.
Yeah, and also it's kind of but that is also the answer about how did that piece of furniture ever make its way through the staircase and into this apartment? I guess that's how that happened. Just
It sure is.
totally normal things because physics is overrated.
Correct. It's overrated and underutilized. So Darky right now is doing another use of that angle retention.
Yeah, I just saw that.
Unfortunately-
Apparently switches can likewise just be pulled through through walls or right.
Yep. And there was one of those little bugs that was in the wall. So when he pulled that pillar and then tried to grab it from below, he then got hit by the bug he put in the wall.
Did we
which
just
then
boss key
launched him
skip?
through it. We did. We just boss key skipped. We skipped about a third of the dungeon by doing this. And we're going to see it on semi-screen right now. He's going to grab that, going out of that last hole diagonally, pulling that lever upwards, pushing it against the wall, pulling it diagonally again, and then grabbing it to launch himself into the enemy, shoving him through the wall. He is now above the floor and is able to skip himself right to the end. You'll also see that both runners picked up that fairy in a bottle. That is not used for marathon safety. That is used for a death abuse, where we want to be able to die at a controlled time to open a door, but not go through it. And we'll see that twice in relatively quick succession a little bit later this run. But now we're fighting Glee Rock, the second dungeon of the game. And you'll see if you look closely at the top and bottom wall, you will or on both side walls too, is you will actually see an impression of Glee Rock in the walls.
Oh yeah, nice detail.
It's one of my favorite little details is that in most of the dungeons, you'll actually see some type of design of the dungeon, something either inscribed on the walls or the floors, or even somewhat more debatably, the shape of the dungeon itself kind of reflects the boss found within, which is another really nice detail point that I love about this game.
Oh, it does seem kind of gauche to decorate your home with just portraits of yourself. Just saying.
I personally wouldn't do it, but I mean, if you're a mythical monster with the ability to breathe fire, I mean, I feel like it might be a little bit more appropriate to brag about yourself a little bit. You got to have that self-confidence. That's very important in this climate.
Got it flaunted. Yeah, that's true.
Both runners doing an excellent job knocking out the boss. Still very, very close. You can see like it was about half a cycle difference between these two runners. So super close race so far. And this is the point of the run where everything falls apart. We've gotten some tools to be able to really start utilizing some of the exciting glitches known to the Minish Cap any %. First off, though, now that we've completed the dungeon, the smithy is completed, putting our sword back together. So we're going to go pick that up and then descend the mountain in a very normal and standard way that you would expect someone to do in real life. So now we got our sword. It does deal double damage that it did before, which is always exciting.
We
And
appreciate our blacksmiths.
Yeah. Shout out to the blacksmiths in the real world. You guys are the real OGs. But we're going to be utilizing the fairy, and Darky's going to do it with the cane equipped. So he's kind of doing some different equips. But we're going to be moving Greg. I like to call him Greg. He's my little buddy. These rock beetles, this one rock beetle is going to be used to line him up against the wall. And then we find a very specific height and then do something called push storage to clip ourselves out of bound. So, you know, in Zelda games, when you push up on an object, see, totally normal way to go down a mountain. When you push yourself up against an object, there's a few frames before you actually start moving with the object, and that's called a push value. It just counts up every frame, and once it hits a certain number, you then push the object. By holding up, getting the push value to a certain range or a certain value, and then lining yourself up, the game is kind of going to shove you with that rock beetle, and the game's going to try to make you jump down the cliff. However, there really isn't anywhere to land, which then puts you out of bounds. By rolling down a bunch of times, you can get to the very bottom of the mountain, which allows you to skip past a cutscene of seeing Vadi possessing the king. Spoilers. And that does a lot of very exciting things. So first off, it saves a bunch of time. It also allows us to skip past a usual need for being able to use that copy ability, because we can skip past the cave that would normally need it. And it also makes sure that we never actually set the guards to be on, like, alert in front of the castle. So anytime we need to go to the castle, we can just dash right in without having to normally do a repeated stealth section.
So we're not just skipping a cutscene trigger, this also is important to game state.
Yeah, so a lot of the cutscenes in this game, Minish Cap is very flag-based. So by going somewhere or activating a cutscene, it sets the game, like you said, to a particular game state that determines where people are, what things are available, who says what. And you saw that we, both runners, went and read that sign in the forest after we finished clipping back into bounds, and that sign was another one of those flag triggers that allowed you to go into the shoe shop to make him fall asleep and start the Pegasus Boots quest, because that sign tells you that you need Pegasus Boots to get through the swamp. So it seems like a really random, unfitting thing to do, to just read a random sign, but that's what makes the game allow you to progress forward. That or entering the swamp, and it's just a little faster to read the sign.
Talk about load-bearing cutscenes, though.
Right? So now that we're able to start that, we can go through Lon Lon Ranch, and we need to wake that guy up. So we need a wake-up mushroom that apparently smells so bad it'll take anybody out of even the deepest sleep. And that is found in the Minish Woods. So we're going back, but from a different side of the woods to be able to access the witch's hut. And this is why we were collecting the extra rupees. The 20 rupees on Mount Krenel, and then the 50 rupees you may have seen picked up from a chest inside Cave of Flames. That way we would have at least 60 rupees in order to buy the wake-up shroom from Syrup's hut right here in the woods. And then we can take this to go back to the shoemaker, to the cobbler, and he'll be able to finish up the Pegasus Boots. And then we can run, which is the fastest form of movement short of fast travel.
So are they actually required for game progress, or is it just that having the Pegasus Boots saves so much time that it is worth the while to do this 3-minute side quest?
Great question. It's actually both. It saves a lot of time in general movement, and it is also required. There are a few like out-of-bounds clips that we do using the Pegasus Boots. Additionally, the Pegasus Boots are used for those RNG manipulations that we talked about at the very beginning of this run. So the way that we control the RNG flow is through specific movements. So you can think about the RNG in Minish Cap like a list of numbers. So when you turn on the game, it always has the same starting value. And then every time an event happens that changes the RNG, it moves it to the next value on the preset list. It's a consistent list every single time. The only thing that's not consistent is how quickly it gets moved through by the enemies moving, you swinging the sword, you rolling, as well as boot dashing. So those movements is what progresses the RNG by that single step each time. And that's how we're able to have these precise RNG manips.
Okay. So the amount of time that you can use the dash feature is basically also tightly controlled. Like you need to basically be counting in your head how many fields you dash through.
So it's not the amount of fields you dash through. It's in the startup. So in the startup, there are 3 little dusts, little poofs of dust that come up. Each of those poofs of dust progresses the RNG by 3 steps.
Okay, so as long as you keep running, it doesn't matter how far you go, but if you stop and then dash again, that will advance your advance your RNG, and then you might have game state or RNG state that you weren't prepared for.
Correct. And now this is when things get really crazy. So we don't like playing most of this game, particularly this whole section. It's getting a lot of these golden kinstones.
Playing the video game is slow if you can avoid it.
Exactly. So we use another one of those RNG manips to get these green kinstones, which are going to be helpful later. We need to fuse them with with Tingle and his brothers in order to obtain a required item for the run. And then once we get those kinstones, we're going to be using the Gust Jar with the RNG manip to get him in the right spot to be able to grab him. And by lining him up on a specific spot, we're going to use him to clip in between those little wooden pillars, which puts you above everything else. And by going above everything else, you see on semi-screen, we're dashing through and skipping everything, including this whole section here. This is a very long wraparound of fighting enemies and shrinking down and getting big again, and we skip it all because none of it matters.
Unless you're basically on top of the world, and then it's just... Yep. Really quickly done.
In Fortress of Winds, you saw both runners immediately save and quit and restarted because we went from one RNG manip immediately into another one. So this right now is going to be making the Armos, the red armored guy, move in a very specific way, so we can do lever clip. The Armos moving kind of shoves you inside the turned off Armos and lets you grab the lever behind them without having to kill them and move them. Additionally, the RNG manip allows us to get specific movement from the Armos to get the fourth green kinstone that we need, that Darky just grabbed and Semi's about to grab if you missed it.
My goodness.
It gets better. We're not done. So now that we got that green kinstone, we are still in the RNG manip. And we'll see if these runners get this manip, because this one's a little trickier. But it's very specific movement. With all of these enemies changing RNG, our movement is precise to ensure that we are getting to a specific value in the list of RNG values. That's going to have two purposes. So Darky right now is going to get into a fight with an Iron Knuckle, and our movement made it to where his movement is consistent. Additionally, when we kill him, you will see... So Darky got a green kinstone, and we'll see if Semi did a slightly different manip to get a red kinstone, which I believe is what Darky was really going for. But again, these manips are very precise. The smallest mistake can completely change the RNG.
There's a red kinstone.
Yep, so Semi got the red kinstone, which is going to be required for skipping the entirety of the cemetery, as well as flying around in the clouds, which is really sad because flying around in the clouds is fun. So Darky did not get the red kinstone, so you're going to actually see two different routes here, where Darky's going to do some movement in the manip to be able to get the same red kinstone from a chest right here, and then Semi doesn't have to do that because he already got the red kinstone from the Iron Knuckle.
Well, that just saves Semi some time. How much time did that just save him?
It's a handful of seconds, maybe 5 or 6. But when you get to like 4th and 5th on the ladder, like these two gentlemen are, that 4 and 5 seconds means a lot. Now, another exciting thing that's going on that just happened on Darky's screen that we're going to see on Semi's right now is pedestal items. So using an item at the same time as getting onto a pedestal has a lot of fun effects. Using the mole mitts lets you kind of clip a little bit higher, which is almost enough to get you over the wall. That bomb that Semi has on the ground is that last little push to get him over the edge.
Oh my goodness.
Just
What?
like that. to get him to skip the entire rest of the dungeon. We played maybe a quarter of the dungeon, and of that quarter, we played the same section twice. And so now we're in Mazal, because every Nintendo game needs an ancient temple style boss with eyes on hands. It's a requirement.
Yeah,
It's in the contract.
it's a legal requirement. I think that actually that's written into their contract. They can't not have that.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain it's in the bylaws. So with Mazal, you shoot the eye, you attack the eye. When you break both of them, Mazal falls down, and you can shrink down to go right in his little chin and find the glowing pedestal with the eyes on it. Once you find it, you break it, and you get out of there. This has to be repeated 3 times. It is fully random where they show up, but after the first phase, they just can't show up in the same place twice. So you can use that knowledge that it can't be in the same pillar twice to influence like how you move the next time you go in there. So Semi had it on the back left pillar, and he's going to go in right now, and he knows it's not on the back left pillar. So he's going to check, he's going to go to all the other ones and avoid that back left to save just a little bit of time. He did get unlucky having it be in the back middle, because that means he checked every other pillar and never got to that one. So it's another case where RNG can either help you or hurt you, but a little bit of knowledge can help to minimize that difference as much as you can.
So, question about the fight just now. Apparently, these runners are quite unfazed by the boss thumping its fist on the ground right where they are standing. Is that another case of manipulating the game, or is that just the game being coded such that there is just no collision with that second fist hitting the ground?
So there's definitely collision with it. Usually we just roll through it, or sometimes you can use the fist hitting the ground while you're shooting an arrow to kind of skip having to wait for the arrow to finish firing out. The arrow will go out and you can move again. But as long as you're doing your rolls right, you're usually just fine.
All right.
Kind of catch us up a little bit, because a lot's going on right now. So we just skipped the heart container at the end of Fortress of Winds because we actually want to be low on health. I mentioned that we do a couple of death abuses in the run, and they're coming up right now. So we know that a bomb deals a half-heart of damage. So we're going to want to be at a half-heart of health pretty soon here. And we are now starting the Tingle side quest. This is not a required item in a casual game, but it is required for the any % speedruns, the magical boomerang. So we're going to be doing these kinstone fusions with Tingle and his 3 brothers. I don't remember most of their names. I just remember one of them's called David Jr. But we're going to be doing these kinstone fusions in order to get that magical boomerang. So Darky right now doing specific movement to line up his position. Quick little safety save just in case it goes wrong. And that bomb that he put down is going to kill him the moment he opens the door. So normally opening that door walks you right through it. But if you die as soon as you open the door is open and it doesn't actually push you through it. And we also just saw the ocarina glitch. So games like cutscenes. They like showing the player things, but if you do 2 cutscenes at the same time, sometimes the game doesn't know what to do. And in the case of the Minish Cap, when you start the cutscene of playing the ocarina at the same time as the cutscene of going through a door, it just doesn't do either of them. And it puts you in what's called the ocarina glitch, where all the enemies are stopped, their hitboxes are disabled, and has a lot of other fun effects. So, for example, you are able to go upstairs to go higher in layers, but you're not able to walk down them again. Additionally, certain actions can actually freeze or crash your game. So while you're in the first room that you started the ocarina glitch in, if you dash into a wall and you bonk off of it, you're soft locked. The game gets stuck. If you roll, it soft locks and you get stuck. So you have to be careful in the ocarina glitch where you don't accidentally freeze yourself. But by
Right.
using that, it's basically, I would say it's the most powerful glitch in the game because it allows you to run over top of a lot of obstacles, and we're going to see it pretty consistently throughout the run now that we have this very powerful item. Additionally, right now on Semi's screen, we see him using the red kinstone that he got to fuse with this person, and that's going to put a little teleporting glyph next to your house. That is going to be our ticket into the Palace of Winds, the 4th dungeon of the game, which allows us to skip having to go through the entire cemetery and that whole run around to get to the clouds, to fly up, to get to the dungeon. That teleporting glyph itself doesn't let you skip everything, but that teleporting glyph with the ocarina glitch does, because you can kind of skip through some people that would normally be blocking doors in order to skip through to the end. But now on Darky's screen, having finished getting all of the kinstones and doing all the fusions with the Tingle Brothers, he's going for that big chest in the middle, which is going to have the magic boomerang. The magic boomerang is unique in the sense that if you hold down the item button, you're able to kind of control its movements. And that has the added benefit of breaking boss doors.
I was going to say that I'm sure there's no way that movement, like that control of an item's movement, can be abused.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. This game is it's iron locked. It's locked down tight, and there's no glitches whatsoever with innocuous things like a boomerang. We're going to see another death abuse right now done the exact same way, essentially doing the boots and the bombs at the same time, and then shooting the bow once after rolling. That puts you in a perfect spot at the right timing to open the door and die, which is how I feel when I go to work. And that allowed him to do another ocarina glitch on the door.
Legit, by the way.
Fantastic first tries from everybody here. And that allowed him to get right into the dungeon and not have to get the flippers, which are normally required for swimming. So that's a massive skip of not having to go through all of the quests for the power bracelets and the flippers. You can just get right into this water dungeon and not even worry about it.
I see. So this is another Zelda game where the answer to not having flippers is not getting flippers. It is just keep swimming, basically.
Correct. In this game, instead of swimming, we just kind of Jesus ourselves. We run right over the surface of the water by using the ocarina glitch. Because it doesn't put us down into the water, it just keeps us on that surface level. Temple of Droplets is a fascinating dungeon full of ice physics and swimming and lily pads. So 3 of the commonly least liked mechanics in any game ever. The nice thing about any percent, though, is that we only have to deal with ice physics 2 times. We don't have to do any swimming, and we don't have to do any lily pads. So Darky's going to get the boss key, or the big key, right now. And then using the boomerang, you're going to see that he is going to open the boss door, but not actually go through it. It is going to disable the loading zone on the door. So if you remember back in Cave of Flames, when we used that kind of pillar we pushed to turn off the door, this is doing basically the same thing, where we can then skip through, see some totally normal textures on a wall, and it's going to get us right into the blue shoe mini-boss fight so we can get the lantern.
In other words, doors are just like physics in these kinds of games. A mere suggestion.
Yes. Yeah, we don't really have to care about doors. They're helpful for a couple ocarina glitches, and that's it.
Oh no, is it another Chew fight?
It is, and this one's really annoying because he turns on the electricity. When he is electrified, you cannot use the gust jar, so it's a lot of waiting it out and trying to get him in a good position so that when the electricity runs out, you can immediately start using the gust jar. Darky had a really good first cycle there, putting him right in the middle of the screen where you want him, like middle horizontally speaking, which allowed him to line himself right above and very quickly finish that first cycle. And then after that, you can sort of manipulate how he moves based on where you are and how far away from him you are. If you go too far away, he's more likely to jump. But when the electricity turns off, if he's going to be in a right spot, sometimes it's just up to the odds. Now, Temple of Dropless is another dungeon where normally being able to create copies is required. However, we never fused any of the elements that we've picked up. So we don't have the ability to do the main mechanic of the game. So we're going to skip that by doing, I would say, the most difficult glitch in the run. This is a frame-perfect skip called Octoclip. So you're going to see another RNG manip here. So we have to do the most difficult glitch in the game, and at the same time, we're doing specific movements in order to control the RNG values of the next boss. So Octoclip is all about taking this pot that Darky's pushing right now to the bottom of the room, and then using that pot to skip through a wall. So at the bottom of the room is the boss. It's the giant Octo frozen in ice. And there is collision on most of the body, but the only exception is the tile he's standing on right now, and then the one diagonally down right from him. They're not walls, so there's that tiny little corner he can slip through. So Darky here is going to be doing some specific movement, and he's having to reset it a little bit because it really is that precise. Because we're not just talking pixel lineups, we're talking about sub-pixels.
Oh no.
Yeah! So in order to have like more realistic looking movement and make sure everything looks nice and smooth and momentum and all that fun stuff, there are sub-pixel values. And the movement that Darky's doing right now, where he kind of walks right up to a wall and pushes on it, is meant to reset those sub-pixels to be in a specific spot. Now, if you want the RNG manip to go through, you want to be able to get this clip within the first 2 attempts, 3 if you're lucky. So right now, Darky's having a lot of trouble, and that's fully understandable. This is a very hard trick to do. You're using the Gust Jar and the sword to line yourself up.
There you go.
He got it! And then moving diagonally into the bottom right corner of the pot, and then rolling exactly 7 frames after you start moving.
Sure.
Yeah.
How many frames per second does this game run on again?
This is a 60 frame per second game.
Lovely.
So, yeah. It's great. It's lovely. It's wonderful. There are like visual cues that you can go with. Some people just do it based on vibes. A lot of people have different ways that they sort of track that to do their best with it. Semi, unfortunately, did have to reset this room. If you accidentally push the pot up against a wall, there's no way to pull the pot off of it. So he had to reset this room in order to reattempt the glitch. Now, blessing and a curse is that if he's able to get this in the first couple tries, that's going to put him on slightly better footing than Darky, because he's going to have the RNG manip. Darky right now, while he was able to clip in, he's just hoping that RNG doesn't screw him up to where he's able to still get the good RNG. So for this fight, in this third phase, the first 2 phases are really consistent, but this third phase, he can suck you in. If he does that, he's going to shoot a rock, and then he's going to do what's called an ink. And this ink loses just like that. It loses you 30 seconds. So that's why the RNG manip is so important. It's so you don't have to deal with these ink phases. He can do it twice, as long as you're still hitting him in all the other windows you can, and that just loses you a minute of time, and it's outside your control. Semi now getting that clip, so he's in the fight. I didn't see how many attempts it took.
Quite a few more too, but he did catch up some to Darkysquid, I think.
Yeah, a little bit, and we'll see how the fight goes, because right now Darky's got 2 inks. He did miss shooting back one of the rocks, so he might actually end up with a 3 ink fight if he's really unlucky. So we'll see if he gets the 3rd ink right here, and he is. So this is worst case scenario in terms of RNG, which gives Semi a good opportunity to catch back up if the luck goes a little bit more favorably for him. And this is unfortunately just how it goes with the Octoclip route, where you have to do the hardest glitch in the run, and it's a part of specific movement for an RNG manip, for one of the most time sink bosses in the game.
If this were just a normal RTA run, this would have been a reset for Starkey, right?
More than likely, yeah. Getting a 3 ink would be, it's devastating. That's a minute and a half that you would lose, just based purely on RNG out of your control. So now we can see the moment of truth for Semi is he going to get sucked in?
No.
So he's got a dash. So we got another dash, which is losing time, but we still don't know. Another dash.
Oh, goodness.
And he gets sucked in. So like 3 or 4 dashes, and he got sucked in. He lands the rock, though, so that saves a little bit of time. That means he can only get a 2 ink and not a 3 ink, because by the time it would roll around to a potential 3rd ink, Octo will already be dead by then. So we'll see if Semi gets the 2 ink, or if the gods will favor him ever so slightly in this next attempt. So we'll see. There we go. Okay, so he only got 1 ink there, so that does save him a little time to help him catch up to Darky. And we'll see, because now we've got a separation between the 2 runners.
Will it be enough, realistically, considering Darky is, I think, now in POW, so in or almost there, basically.
Yeah, so he's going to be doing 2 different fusions. So right now we're doing the first fusion, and then he's going to save and quit, and then do the next fusion right away. And yeah, so PK in the chat, another very accomplished runner. And it's rough. It's too much of a difference right now unless there's a major mistake from one of the runners. It could happen.
We don't wish that on any runner in this in this race, though. Obviously,
absolutely.
So
yeah, I want to make sure that both runners, have the best opportunities that the game can provide them. So I wouldn't wish any kind of misfortune on anyone. Either way, still a very good race. Both of these runners still knocking it out of the park. And having that happen on Octoclip and then the Octo fight, it's really hard. There's no 2 ways of putting it. It's an incredibly precise trick, and you're dealing with ice physics and the pressure of having an RNG manip on top of it. So it's not easy. Darky, though, finishing up with getting both those fusions, and is now moving to Palace of Winds, or POW, the second to last dungeon of the game. Or the last dungeon before Dark Hyrule Castle, which will end in the final boss. Palace of Winds is a very exciting dungeon. It's up in the air, the music is great, you get Rock's Cape, which is the coolest item in the game.
And you said basically we're skipping most of it because we're not flying around in the sky, right?
Correct. We do get to skip most of it. We'll be using angle retention and ocarina glitches, as well as dashing next to some stairs in order to cut through some walls. And we're going to see some ocarina glitches right now. So normally these people standing in front of the doors are meant to stop you from sequence breaking, but with the ocarina glitch, we can just kind of sneak right behind them to get right through, even as if they're not even there.
That's kind of rude.
It is a little rude. We are breaking into people's homes and going into, places that they don't want us to be. But I mean, when you're the hero, you get special privileges like bending reality in order to breaking and entering. Which, again, legally speaking, we cannot condone those types of actions. But now we're in Palace of Winds. So, Palace of Winds has 2 required instances for any percent of needing to use the copy ability. For this particular room, and then against the dungeon boss, we skip all other uses of it. So we're actually very close to not needing to do the fusion after Temple of Droplets at all. The only issue is this block. This block requires you to have 3 links, 2 additional copies, to be able to push it to get into the next room. And we're trying, people are looking, but we have not yet found a way to skip past that rock. And that's the only like real reason that we need to do a fusion before going to this dungeon. Normally,
or at all.
It is required for the final boss. In 2 of the 3 phases of the final boss against Vani, it is required to fuse. But prior to that point, yeah, we haven't needed to use it at all. We've skipped all the other functions. And in the Gyorg fight at the end of this dungeon, you'll see Darky and Semi both using the copy ability. But what's really exciting is in another category of this game, we actually don't do fusions in that fight at all. Because if you position yourself just right and you get lucky with some of the patterns, you can beat that boss without having to fuse. But it's up to a lot more luck. It's a lot more difficult. So we have the ability to fuse. We're going to use it. It's just a lot better.
There's always a trade-off between what can you do reasonably in a race and what are techniques that stay reserved for the fastest world record attempting RTA runs just because of how risky they are.
Right, and even then, it's faster to just use your copy strats. We don't use copy strats for Gyorg in one of the extra meme categories.
I see.
And with that meme category, it's using an incomplete item that's still in the codes called the Fire Rod that lets us like replace tiles in the world to skip essentially everything. So if you're curious about it, you can check it out on speedrun.com/TMC and go to the Fire Rod leaderboard, but I'm not going to go super in depth on it here. So on Darky's screen, we saw another use of that angle retention, being able to jump diagonally out of the hole. The game doesn't plan on you being able to jump that way, so it kind of puts you up in a wall that allows you to then skip a section of the dungeon. And here on Semi screen, we're going to see another necessary use of the boots in order to clip through some stairs. And this is used twice in the run in order to skip a section of a dungeon. It's used once here and then once in Dark Hyrule Castle. So essentially we line up the tip of the arrow and then we dash down to the right and we just kind of slip right in between the stairs and the wall to run on top of everything. And this skips a pretty major section of the dungeon, including the need to get the power bracelets. Which was something required a long time ago that we can now
The poor game is just entirely confused about this.
Yep. Honestly, I would imagine that the code will be a little bit hurt because it puts so much work into these lovely side quests, and we're skipping all of it. Also, Darky's screen, he just skipped through the boss door again, this time using the lantern. Using the lantern on B and then rolling your thumb across to the A button opens the door during the lantern turning on cutscene, and that turns off the loading zone and lets you skip another major section, like the entire second half of the dungeon, and you can go right to the boss, a Gyorg, or Georg, or George.
George.
Good old George. So this is why we use the copies. It's so we can line it up to whichever eyes happen to open. 3 eyes will open. You hit them all, and then you can just beat up on all of the other eyes. Dealing enough damage puts you on, lets you get on one of these blue Gyorgs. He'll open up one of his eyes. You beat him up, and then you go back to the big one for more pain and punishment. It just gets a little trickier each time because now those blue, smaller Gyorgs are going to be shooting at you. And generally causing mischief. Darky right now having a really solid fight. Was able to pretty cleanly take care of Georg, except third phase shenanigans. So that blue Georg is just charging right through and pushing you around. And any kind of contact does disable your clones. If you take damage, if you get hit by something, if a clone's floating over no ground for too long, it just turns off the clones and you have to reset them, which takes time. So had to kind of fix the clones once. And right there, actually, Darky just did a spin attack with the 3 eyes that open being right next to each other, and he was able to skip having to do the cloning on that cycle.
That's convenient.
Very nice. And then,
so basically, one entire boss fight now separating Darky and Semi here.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a long fight. So still quite a difference between the runners, but an exciting run to the very end. So now Darky's going to be running into the final dungeon of the game, Dark Hyrule Castle. Dark Hyrule Castle is a very long, labyrinthian mess of having to find small keys in very separated parts of the dungeon in order to get the big key and then access the boss from there.
I'm sure Dark Hyrule Castle also tells its parents that, no, it's not just a phase.
It's not just a phase, Mom. Speaking of not just being a phase, Vadi here. So normally we would have encountered this a long time ago. This would have been after the second dungeon, after we do our fusions. He would have caused this fight. You get some fun lore backstory where you find out that Eslo, the hat, used to not be a hat. The hat who used to not be a hat made a hat, and that hat allows you to make wishes when you wear the hat. Vadi put on the hat, made a dark wish with the hat he was wearing to turn the not hat man into a hat. And that's the hat that helps you. Because he doesn't want to be a hat anymore. And I hope that that makes sense.
Ooh.
But that's essentially what happens. With that hat that makes wishes, he turned Eslo into the bird hat that you see, and he's now using the dark wishes to turn him into an evil sorcerer, and now he's going for even greater powers than that. And that's kind of the little lore dump that you get. But because of the fact that we skipped that first cutscene that we talked about after finishing Cave of Flames, we skipped that cutscene, set a lot of flags, and then skipped a few flags. That fight doesn't happen until right now.
Sure. Okay, so now we're getting our third clone.
Yep. So now we're finishing the 4 sword. It's now combining back into its true form, and we're able to make that third clone, which will allow us to finish the game. This is required. We don't actually use it in Dark Hyrule Castle, but it is required in order to beat Vadi. Additionally, getting the 4 sword gives us that really cool light circle spin attack thing that Darky just used in the cutscene, and that's going to be necessary for us to even get into the dungeon, as well as save Princess Zelda. So now we actually get the exact same cutscene that we had at the very start of the game. The difference being there's like one extra picture at the end that connects all the dots. That Princess Zelda houses an ancient golden power that gets passed down through the princesses of Hyrule. And Vadi's like, wow, that's actually really cool. I have Zelda turned into a statue. I'll just get the golden power from her using my dark sorcerer magic. And so now we are on the final leg of the journey to stop Vadi before he can absorb the golden power from Zelda, which would essentially just make him a god.
We generally don't want evil gods?
Generally not. And in this particular instance, we can actually avoid that by doing the good hero fight and defeating Vadi before his plan comes to fruition. Oh man, shock and awe! Vadi was pretending to be the king. Oh man, if only we had the cutscene to show that to us before. So now it's just really confusing. But The king is currently locked up in the dungeon of Dark Hyrule Castle, and Vadi pretended to be him the whole time.
Wow.
Wow. Crazy plot twists.
Yep. What a twist.
What a twist. And look, we did it. We used the copy ability. I hope Nintendo's proud of us. We did the thing.
Yep. As intended.
And as intended. So now
As
we're doing
intended,
cutscene
even.
walking. Intended. So now we're doing cutscene walking, where essentially we started it by having Eslo talk at the exact same time as the little attendant guy came out of his statue form from your spin attack. So both of those things happened at the same time, allowing you to walk during the following cutscene that we then continue to combo, basically, by freeing the other people from their statues with the right timing. Darky right now is setting up for another stair clip that allows you to skip another leg of the dungeon.
Sure. Walls
It's
are mere
great.
suggestion.
Correct. Because of the little stair clip that Darky did, going in between the end of the stairs and the little block that's meant to be a wall, you never actually go down the stairs, so the game thinks you're higher up than you are, and you can just kind of skip right through a wall. Darky now is going to try to do the cool guy strat, which is going to allow him to get rid of all 4 of these iron ball shooting cannon statues at the same time.
Does it involve him not looking at an explosion?
It does involve him having one in his far peripheral, which I think is good enough. It's pretty precise to line up, and if you mess it up, it's faster to just do the clones and just take care of it as opposed to going back and retrying. So we'll get to see if Semi saves a little bit of time by getting that trick. It saves you like a second or two. Maybe a little bit more depending on how optimized your movement is afterwards, if you have to do the backup. So Semi is now entering Dark Hyrule Castle. So about a minute and a half right now, if I was watching closely enough, is separating these 2 runners. So that's a tall order to make up for Semi. Anything can happen, the run's not over. So we'll have to see what happens at the end here. Darky now doing another Ocarina glitch, because the goal right now is to get 4 small keys. We got one from the chest that Darky got a little bit ago, and now we're going to be abusing the Ocarina glitch to its fullest extent to get the next 3 small keys in these distant towers that are normally very far away to get to, but we can just run on top of the walls like it doesn't even matter. And we're able to get right to those keys without all of the other run around.
That does seem useful.
It's pretty great. So
as Warlock of the Butt Kraken says in chat, the precision that these runners have been demonstrating all throughout this race is mind blowing. I mean, I normally play 3D Zelda games. I play some OTR, I play some Wind Waker Rando, but my goodness, that has the precision we have to have there. It has nothing on what these guys are doing.
For me, it's a different kind of precision. I have a little bit of experience in running both games, and when it comes to Ocarina of Time, it's just a lot of angle setups. With Minish Cap, it's just being incredibly precise and deliberate with the D-pad, of putting yourself exactly where you need to be, those slight little adjustments by a pixel or even a sub-pixel to line yourself exactly where you want to be. So, all very impressive. And even with the Octoclip issues that happened earlier with both runners, still, fantastic gameplay all around.
Yes, indeed.
So Darky just did the final Ocarina glitch of the run, which got him through some more walls, and he was able to use the cape with the Ocarina glitch to skip having to go through a door. So he's going kind of backwards through this section in a way, where he walked through an open door that was actually like a one-way sealed door on the other side. And by doing the little jump with the Rock's cape, he was able to kind of bounce over the closed door, whereas otherwise, if you just walked right through it, you would just get stuck and have to leave the room from that closed door. Darky right here doing a precise jump and some movement in order to lock down that Dark Nut to get those 8 sword swipes without him being able to even turn or attack back at all, which is a really good time save. Semirare now grabbing his 3rd key and going for the final Ocarina glitch as well. So now we're going into Fire Pillar Room. So this is another really tricky room. There's a lot of enemies and that massive fire bar, and we're trying to set up another one of those angle retentions. But instead of using a hole, we are holding a diagonal when the fire bar hits us, so that we are able to push that block diagonally. And that lets us go in here and grab this 4th key. So we're saving that diagonal angle where instead of pulling the pillar diagonally like we were doing in Cave of Flames, we're now pushing a block diagonally. Darky right now is in the final RNG manip of the game. So even the final boss is an RNG manip when you are a top level player. So all of the movements you see are deliberate and specific to ensure that we are progressing the RNG exactly as we want it. So no stray rolls, no extra sword slashes, no extra boot dashing. It's exactly what we want it to be when we want it to be. You might also see some differences in the RNG manips of these 2 runners, because there's a few different methods that achieve the same thing, but some players find one set of movements easier or more consistent than another. And in the case of Semirare, and I'm pretty sure Darky as well, have kind of created their own variants that they have been able to use for more success of their own. So even in these top levels of play, different runners are doing different RNG manips to achieve the same final goal.
Basically just to help them with consistency on what movements feel comfortable with for them, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, they're both going to achieve an easy fight on the Dark Nuts, like we saw with Darky. That RNG manip just lines everybody up for the slaughter, I suppose. Because otherwise that fight can get out of hand really fast. And what's going on in this fight is Vaati is doing his little magic stuff, which is ringing these bells. When the 3 bells ring, it's game over. Vaati wins, you lose. Return of Ganon from Zelda 2. And so if you spend too much time in that Dark Nut fight, the bell will ring and you will get a game over.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Which, in my opinion, is super interesting mechanic. I think it's like about 2.5 minutes in that fight. And if PK's still in the chat, he can keep me honest on that one. But now Darky is in the Vaati fight and is still in an RNG manip. So everything he's doing is specific to make Vaati's movements consistent, so he knows exactly what to expect, and the fight can be optimal. So all these dashes and rolls and movement is all to line up the RNG how he wants it. It's not just fumbling around waiting for the next cycle to happen, it's deliberate. So in Vaati 2, you have to shoot these 4 eyes and then kind of copy yourself on these colored panels in order to drop Vaati's main eye and deal damage to him. Now, similar to the Mazal fight, the eyes that you're supposed to hit will never be in the same place twice. So once you get one pattern, you know the next cycle is not going to have that same pattern. So in a casual playthrough, you can kind of pay attention to that and know, okay, it's not going to be all 4 on the bottom because I just had that one. For the RNG manip, they're going to know where that pattern's going to be because it's predetermined, essentially. As long as they follow their list of movements they need to follow, the fight is guaranteed. And Darky did an excellent job keeping up his RNG manip. Semi right now is going to be outside of his RNG manip. So you're going to see a little bit more of a raw fight as he's trying to kind of keep up with that and see what Vadi throws him. So Darky just saved Zelda. Now that's not run over as much as we want it to be. We still have to get out of the castle, and I'm sure that nothing's going to go wrong as the castle is crumbling around us. I'm sure they'll be able to leave, and then the credits will roll, and oh no, the front door is closed by 3 rocks we can probably climb over. But we have to go back in the dungeon, and now we're like, we have to get to the sanctuary. It's the only safe place to go. And I'm sure, again, that nothing will go wrong on the way to the sanctuary.
How could it?
How could it?
We are safe, right? Oh.
Oh no, lightning
oh
inside
no.
of a building. Oh man.
What might that be?
It's Eyeball Man. So this is Vadi's final phase. With one of the coolest music tracks in the game. So Darky right now doing a little bit
let
of
me swap something around then. If we get a cool music track, then audio to Darky. Here we go.
So essentially with this, you kind of position yourself to get the big Vadi guy to be in a good spot to where he's not going to be right in front of the pedestal. And then you need to find the real eye because it has a pupil. And you find the real eye and break it, and that's going to destroy the arm. And then the next arm goes in. He's able to use the Canopassi to kind of pop the arm off of the body to go in. And that's another one of my favorite parts about this game and this fight specifically is it really makes you use all of the items you've got. And a lot of like other Zelda games, as long as you've got the sword, you're pretty much covered for the fight. But in Minish Cap, you really have to bust out most of the arsenal you get from these dungeons to be able to defeat the boss. And that's one of my favorite things. You use the Gust Jar in Phase 1, you use the bow in Phase 2, and then in this phase you've got the lantern, you use the Canopassi. Like, you have to be on your toes and switching items, and it really makes it feel like the very climactic fight that it is.
That is really cool because a lot of Zelda games, even a lot of games in general, yeah, you just need the one major plot element item to be able to beat the big bad in the end. So, and that seems to be
That's it. That
dot
is
done
time
for Darky. GG's.
Yep. So a 1:30:43 from Darky. Fantastic run. And then Semi right now as well, saving the princess on his way to Vadi 3 as well. So for both runners, still a very close race. And really clean execution across the board from these runners. Octoclip notwithstanding, which is not something I'm going to hold against people, because that clip sucks.
That looked bloody difficult, to be quite honest. All right, let's see if we can get our runners in for a quick interview, a little chat about their race. I've already asked, so let's see. And if not, this was honestly everything I hoped a Minish Cap pre-stream was going to be. It was it is still one of the most charming Zelda games I think has ever been created, and my goodness, the precision and the tricks that these runners have demonstrated today were outstanding. All right, let's cheer Semirare across the finish line. I'm going to keep their stream on the on the layout for the moment. But also, let's get Darkysquid in here and chat about what just happened. Darkysquid, GG.
Hey, GG.
GG.
Well, that race was kinda terrible for both of us, I think. But hey.
How do you feel?
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say, I'd say it's Octoclip notwithstanding, it was a really solid run and great execution from both of you. But how do you feel about the run?
Well, it was kinda stressful because at the beginning I started to lose some time because I lost like 30 seconds to Gleerock, which is usually a pretty easy boss. And so I was like, yeah, this early game is like meh. And yeah, then Octoclip was kinda bad too. So yeah, I wasn't watching the run of Semi, so I was like, maybe I'm behind, maybe I'm still ahead by a bit, and it was kinda stressful. GG, it just finished.
Yeah, Semi just finished, so huge GGs. Make sure we're getting our GGs in the chat. Excitement for both runners. I think no matter what, y'all did a fantastic job, and it was a really good race to run or to watch for sure.
Yeah, I mean, from the perspective of the restreamer, from the perspective of Zelda Speedruns, thank you so much for putting on a heck of a show for us tonight. Let's hop this, send this layout over to the interview screen real quick, and that was certainly a thing that happened. I'm super impressed with, as someone who has no idea about Minish Cap. Honestly, I'm just here for the tech and to kind of bounce questions off of Draquius. This was super impressive. The precision that you both honestly exhibited during this entire race. GG as well, Semirare. Welcome in.
Hello.
GG.
GG.
Yeah, that was a very weird run for me.
Kinda same.
I got 3 Cycle Matter Pillar for like the first time in probably 5 years.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I
that
got
like
an
corner
extra
position was
cycle on
rough.
Gleerock, so
Yeah,
can't
he
blame you.
he just jammed up in a corner. I couldn't get like a good spot to slash.
Oh yeah, that happens sometimes.
Yeah, it was weird. Like the only big things I messed up were Body Manip and an Octoclip, but I lost like so much time to just weird little mistakes.
Yeah, Octoclip and Octomanip was kind of a wash. It's kind of rough on both sides.
Yeah.
It's just a really difficult trick having to get that frame perfect timing on top of ice physics and being an RNG manip.
I had that really weird, like the first time I went to set it up, I was holding right, like after I got the pot into place, and my controller registered it down, so I had to reset.
I saw that. That's something that happens to me a lot when I get stuck with the ice physics trying to wrap around the pot, and then Link's like, nah, I think I'm just going to push it into a wall and ruin your day.
Yeah.
But really impressive from both of you today. It was a really great race to watch and be a part of.
Yeah, it could have been pretty close if I got Body in minute, but really weird place for me to mess that up, like right at the start.
Yeah, I guess it was really close at the start of the HC, or maybe Palace of Winds.
Yeah, I think my DHG was pretty good. I messed up cloneless cannons, but that was pretty much it.
Well, I messed it up too, so...
Of course. Yeah, and then I just lost Body Map immediately. I hit the first 2 eyes.
I think it's one of the first runs where I get the full Valley Manip.
Mm.
That was very impressive to see the whole first 2 phases of Vadi be predetermined, essentially.
Yeah, it's quite satisfying when you can get it.
Yeah. It's kind of like required at this point.
Yeah,
Like you
once you're
just
that
lose so
high in the
much
ladder.
time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
it's
that
next on
body
my
one I
list of
had, I
first
lost
sword.
like a minute and a half.
Mhm. All right. Well, I really appreciate you two being here. So then, going into the rest of this, like Darky's going to be moving on. Semi moving into the lower brackets. So Semi, you are not out of this yet. You have more opportunities, and I'm excited to see where the rest of the tournament takes us. Thank you two gentlemen for being here. I appreciate you both. And then Zelda Speedruns, thank you so much for restreaming this race and this tournament. And I appreciate the opportunity to be on here and explain a bunch of stuff and talk about stuff and tell a couple jokes here and there.
Yeah.
Thank
GG
you.
And
Darky,
Thanks.
and thanks for the commentary, Jack.
Of course. I'm glad I was available for it. This was awesome.
I can only echo the thanks for the commentary, Drac. Thank you so much for stepping in and helping out here, and our pleasure to restream this really exciting race. Hope to put on obviously the later stages of this tournament as well. This is the upper bracket semifinals, so there is still a few matches yet to go. Best of luck, obviously. To everyone left in the tournament. And I think that is my cue to kind of take us out of here. So I'm going to say thank you again to Semirare and Darkysquid for putting on a heck of a show for us today. Thank you to Dragfiz for insightful and really interesting commentary. I learned a lot. And we'll see you soon on Zelda Speedruns. In fact, I'll send you over to Zelda Speedruns 2 right now, where there is some Wind Waker randomizer tournament going on. It's the lower bracket finals, game 2. So this one might be the decision maker for who moves on to grand finals, Knave or Sledge. And yeah, let's cheer them across the finish line.
Amazing.
I'll see you over there.
Have a good one, everybody.
Thanks. See ya.
Thanks, a good one.
Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.